Hi, I'm Jeremy. Welcome to Let's Talk Finances. Today, we're talking with Rob Wiltsey, who owns his own video production company, VideoFresh. Back when we spoke right before Christmas of 2020, he had mentioned leading up to our conversation that he didn't think he had much to share about finances, but boy, we talked about his entrepreneurship journey, his business, what he learned from all that experience, and there are so many golden nuggets. You don't want to skip out on this one. Another thing too is that he changed my perspective on how I looked at influencers on platforms like social media about how they post about their lifestyle. So talk about humility. Without any further ado, let me introduce you to Rob Wiltsey. Hey Rob, thank you so much for coming on. How are you?
Hey, doing really well. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. How do you feel about 2020 so far?
Gosh, that's such a loaded question. Like for us, how do I personally feel about 2020? For me, it's been actually one of the most important years, professionally, also personally. Like a lot of good changes happened, and a lot of it's because of the changes, which are rough, in 2020. But I think a lot of it is like there's just like nothing else to do except kind of like make the changes you need to make. So like with our business, like there's changes that we've known we needed to make for 2 or 3 years, but oh, we're always busy, we got work going on, like there's always something better to do, and the pandemic really just put a halt to everything. And we're sort of sitting there like, well, what do we do? Well, I guess we'll just like uh do a lot of these, we'll work on the business, we'll do a lot of the work that we know we should have been doing, but we kind of always had an excuse to kind of kick down the road. So it's been a lot of, the same thing kind of personally too. So it's been a good thing. I've also got like a 2-year-old who, so like tons of time with them, with
Oh,
him at
that's
home and the family.
awesome.
So like, for me, and like, it's been rough, just like I think for everybody, but I think looking back, it's like, man, like by the results of this year, at least for me personally, has been a lot of positive change. So I'm grateful for kind of what's grateful that the business not only survived, but I think is on a better footing now and than ever. So but yeah, it's been wild. It's been a wild year.
Yeah, and I'm kind of excited to talk about later on what you're brewing business-wise. But let's backtrack a little bit. Like, how did you come about and become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question, because for me it was kind of a slow realization. It was kind of like I've always kind of just like building things. I like projects. Like even when I was a kid, I was kind of that guy who always just like, I didn't just want to hang out. I was want to like build something or have a project, and I was kind of like dragging my friends into stuff. And I've always done video stuff. So like I was like always making little videos and fun little short films, I guess, or whatever, when I was like even, in middle school and stuff like that. So I kind of took all these ingredients that I had. I love sort of, I just loved kind of I had these raw materials that led into sort of starting a business and scaling a business. But I didn't really have a lot of role models growing up. Like I didn't really see anybody. I didn't really have any entrepreneurial role models to look at. So a lot of it was like through my 20s, just like being exposed to other people that scaled businesses and just like the more I was exposed to it, the more I'm like, this is my thing. Like, this is what I love. I love everything about this. I love the adventure of it. I love kind of just the open world sandbox nature of entrepreneurship. Like, so yeah, I would say it's like just for me, it's been a very slow sort of realization throughout my 20s, and now I'm kind of in my early 30s and feel like I'm just getting started right now. So.
Did you have a mentor kind of walk you through that process, or did you just lean on friends that were going through the same process?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really ever have an official mentor. Like, I think for a lot of us, like a lot of my mentors were like on YouTube, right? Like a lot of it was just like, yeah, just listening to like hour-long conversations and tons of podcasts. And then like kind of, I do have like definitely a few entrepreneur friends who really opened my eyes to certain principles and certain sort of like philosophies on how to take a product, bring it to market, test it, like a lot, kind of gathered whatever wisdom I could. I just didn't really like grow up in that strata of society where people were starting businesses, so it's like, so it was really my mentors. I had to kind of find them, a lot of them just on the internet, I guess, but definitely now, some of my, it's kind of like, it's pretty common wisdom now, but just like realizing, oh, I need to really be surrounding myself with people that kind of think along those lines, and people that really do think big, positive thinkers, kind of bigger thinkers. Like that's really, really kind of curating who is in my network has been a huge part of kind of just this collective mentorship of kind of more of a community rather than like an individual mentor. So
when you got started, did you partner up with anybody, or did you kind of do the solopreneur approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I first got started, so my first real business was actually with a business partner, and I learned so much from him. And we ended up working on a business together that was sort of a full service ad agency of sorts. And it was a really good training ground for me. So I had this partner, and he's still running the business. The business is called Culture Cube. You can check them out. So they've continued to scale. So and so I kind of went solo, I think around 2015, 2016 from that. So I started that business back in late 2012. So I was with, so it was a really great experience. I learned a lot from my business partner, and we did some great projects together. And so that was kind of my first experience in business was with him. And then ultimately ended up really, the next step for me was like, okay, let me try to see what I can scale on my own. I've learned a lot. I have a pretty specific, and the vision I had back then is really the same one I have today, which is, cool. I do think that a lot of the ideas that become successful, it's like they just take so long to execute on. Like slow growth is like, I'm always suspicious of fast growth,
Yes.
companies that grow overnight, because there could be a quick decline on the back end too. I think that like slow growth is really what it's all about. So anyway, I've kind of, for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been working on pretty much the same concept since then.
For someone who's watching, wanting to, kind of start the business, I think the scariest thing is getting that first client. How was your experience, and what would be a small tip
for getting your first client?
Yeah.
I think there's a schizophrenia that happens early on where you're trying to project yourself as someone who is like, has the expertise to get this first client. But at the same time, that you're at the very beginning and you don't have a lot of experience, and you haven't had a client before. Right. And so I think there's kind of this internal, at least for me, there's like this internal sort of conflict of like, fake it till you make it, or kind of like putting yourself out there, projecting yourself as this. I would just say authenticity is better. So
I love that. I love that.
So I wouldn't like worry about actually solving a problem for somebody, and I would worry less about what you charge and less about how it goes down. I think that experience is really valuable. I'm always on the side of authenticity. I don't know if everyone is on. I don't know if everyone agrees with this. Where like I'd say just be like, here's where I'm at. Here's what my skill set is. I really want to solve this problem for you. I would just like be upfront and let them know where you're at in your business, and just ask them to give you. I would give them a guarantee too. Like if this doesn't work out, like I'd make it sure it's not a risk on their end. But getting those first few clients, that's really where you learn the most. And so I think that don't be afraid to move fast, but like also just realize that mistakes are going to be made. Like one of the big things is like with clients, like trying to serve them in a way. So if you have a good reason to think something's going to work, like I want to start this business, I want to serve this client in this way and charge this much and blah, blah, blah. I would, there should be no judgment. You shouldn't judge yourself there, because you don't know, you have no data points, right? You're just like
Correct.
starting
Yeah.
for the very first time. But I think that you want to learn from those first experiences. So even if everything goes wrong with the first client, it's not a mistake because you learned. And I think
Right.
that you want to actually learn as fast as possible. So get clients, get messy, make mistakes, but like make notes on like what you're learning, and don't do it again. That if you do it again, then that would be a mistake. So anyway, yeah, it totally depends on the business. Like it totally depends on what you're doing and what's the size of your service, or like what's the price point. I think if you're doing something with a higher price point, it's harder to get that first yes. Whereas if you're selling, like, I don't know, so,
A mask or something.
a mask, that's it's easy to get client one. So I think like for me, getting client one, was, there's a bigger barrier to entry, I think, depending on what it is you're actually selling. But, I would just say, have your eyes on where you think you're headed, like 5 years from now, like who you are 5 years from now. You are that person today. You're just at that point in the timeline. But if your trajectory is, I want to be this person serving clients like this, and you have a crystal clear vision of where you're going, then you're not going to be as debilitated with where you are today. Like keep your eyes on way out there, because that's going to give you the stature to negotiate well, to have enough self-respect for yourself that you're actually like selling well, delivering well, because you're ultimately, where you're headed, and you believe in that trajectory.
That's awesome. And to kind of bounce off what you said, I think you mentioned knowing who you serve. I think that's a good starting point too, because if you know who you want to serve, it'll help narrow down people who are looking for that maybe more expertise or are looking for more prestige. So I absolutely agree. That's my approach too. Authenticity. I'm always like transparency, that this is where I'm at. This is what I'm going for. We may not be a good match, but I'd love to have that conversation with you to see if I can provide the solution you're looking for. So
yeah, I think that's great. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And I think there also has to be an element that you're no matter what business you're in the service business. And that's a big differentiator. I think that's a big, that's one of our top values at our company is we make videos, but like serving the client is the most important thing, not making videos. Like making videos, we happen to make videos, but no matter what you're doing, even if you're selling products, you think of businesses as either a product or a service. Everything is in the service business. So if your intent is to be at the service of your customers and actually improve their life and do something better, you're going to get on a really good trajectory earlier. Whereas I think if your intent is, I want to make money, or I want to grow something big, or I want to like have the appearance of success, like all of those things really cripple you early on, and you'll only grow. You'll ultimately just have to grow out of those things anyway. So I think if your intent is on serving it, because if you're not actually solving a problem for like for an industry or for a demographic of people, if you're not actually improving their lives, or if your product isn't improving their lives, they don't owe you anything. They don't owe you a
correct.
sale. Like they don't owe. It's like, how can you actually be improving their lives? And if what you're doing isn't improving your lives, it's having the humility to go, well, gosh, I'm here to serve them. I better try something else. I better like rethink this whole thing. And I think that you kind of do that. You're going to do that in perpetuity, constantly be reconsidering and second guessing everything you're doing all the time, because you have one goal, and that's to serve your customer base, which is this particular group of people, in this way. And so there's a lot of humility that comes with that. I think if you can manage to have that perspective at sale one, and not like figure it out a couple of years down the road, that's going to help you a lot.
Oh, I totally agree. That's very true. Now, since how many employees do you have in your company?
Right now, we have like 12.
Okay.
And it looks a little bit different. Like, so yeah, everyone that works with us, we don't have any like freelancers, which is
Okay.
something a little bit different. Like everyone is technically an employee, and about half of them are full time and half are close to full time right now. And yeah, so
Is that something when you hire them, you tag along, like we're all about the intent here is to serve? Is that how you convey that message?
definitely. I think if you asked anyone, I think if you ask any one of them, they would say something pretty similar. And that's one of the first things I say when like everyone's in this, even if you're an editor. So we have like creative directors, producers, editors, cinematographers, right? Every one of those, it doesn't matter if you're the cinematographer, you're there to serve the client, and not only to serve the client right then and there, like on set, get the good shots. Like that goes without saying. Everyone in the company actually needs to understand why this video is being made, where it sits in their sales funnel, and
Okay.
what like the actual they have to not be in the box of like, this is the project, we're creating this product, having the full perspective of why this matters, because that makes them make better creative decisions, and everything is rooted in the problem. That like, this video is a tool that is solving a problem. What is that problem? And like, that's another big differentiator, because I don't think that's usually the perspective of video production companies. I mean, like definitely like more on the agency side it is, but we're a video production service. We're not like a full-blown agency, but it's all about serving the client and the end game of how we're doing that, not just like, making some cool content, which, obviously we want to do that too. But
Now, switching gears between business and personal, how has your business affected, or I would say, how has money affected your business and personal finances? Like, how'd you juggle both?
as an entrepreneur with I don't have a huge company, business and personal finance feels rather intertwined. So like, it feels like kind of the same thing, even if it shouldn't. It just is. I mean, especially as the sole owner of a company, it's like, yeah, there's business finances and personal finances, but this is like the money, right? And I mean, like, and now that comes with some caveats, which will probably come up later in this conversation. But I do think that, yeah, like I mean, obviously you can't do anything. Well, who had that one quote, like, business isn't about money. Like money isn't, or life isn't about money, but money is right up there with oxygen. Like you need oxygen, but you don't live to breathe oxygen, right? But like, you have
Correct.
to think of money as everything is money. I mean, money is the substrate of doing anything. And so, yeah, so I definitely, and like full disclosure, like I really sucked with money, for most of my professional career. In fact, personal finance and business finance is kind of something I've really taken a really strong interest in the last few years. I was real big on like top line revenue at first. And I think there might be an argument that that's a good approach. I mean, it's worked out for us. Like I was all about top line revenue. How do we get more revenue? And then once we kind of were doing pretty good with revenue, then it's like, okay, how do I keep more of the revenue? How do I get more profit? And then after that, it's like, how do I actually save the profit? So that was kind of like the I sort of took baby steps in my own life, and sort of with the business, like increase revenue, increase profit, and then increase
Savings.
That was really the progression for me. And I think it was like subconsciously, like kind of intentional. I'm like, I want to really nail revenue and then move on to profit. And I really want to move profit and move on to savings. And I feel like for me, that was how it had to go. I mean, I think some people probably figured that out quicker than I did. And I'm still learning, obviously, but that's kind of been my financial story in a nutshell with the business. So
But that's huge. I mean, that's probably why you were able to keep afloat. I mean, we've seen so many businesses this year just, unfortunately because of the pandemic kind of go down. I mean, especially I'm thinking right away, like the restaurant industry. Driving down the street earlier last week, seeing one of my favorite places from high school shutting down after 40 years of service.
Gosh,
So,
it sucks.
I
Yeah,
think
it's a
business
bummer.
savings is not something we talk so much about because, I guess people are more interested in reinvesting the revenue, I guess.
Yeah,
And so that's great that you actually figured that out early on, even though it took you however much time you had. I think that's very
right.
important. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think I also had some really close calls. I think that was one of the things that helped me figure it out. I had some, without going in, without going into too much detail, I had some really close financial calls with the business where I'm like, okay, we need a pad of savings. We need, even access to like credit, like business loan. Like we need padding. We need resources. We need to account for the worst case scenarios with all of our decision making. So that definitely helped. I think that was the catalyst for me, is kicking it into gear, which again, it's kind of my philosophy on learning in general, is just like do it. If you make a mistake, if you find yourself in an area where everything's going wrong, then
Make the
learn as fast as you
fixes.
can.
Yeah.
It's not a mistake until that second time, and I think so we haven't had a second close call. So I think that's hopefully that'll continue to be the case.
So you mentioned you have a 2-year-old, you have a lovely wife. How do you deal with finances when it comes to your family?
We just have a few really rough principles that we operate by. One is like, can we live on half our income? That's when we make more than twice as much as we did when we got married. Why, you know, why didn't like we just increase? It's so easy to just increase your lifestyle as you earn more money. So we've really made a point not only to decrease our lifestyle a bit, but also as we continue to make more money, we're not increasing our lifestyle until at least we are now living on no more than half of our income after taxes. So that's our new target. So my wife works also, and so we're both kind of working right now. She gets to work. She's working from home this year with everything going on, and so we have really been on a savings kick, and it feels really good. Like, it feels really good to be just saving and like knowing that, like, hey, a month passed, we're in a better financial position than we were last month. I think there's
Right.
nothing worse than like that hamster wheel feeling of like, financially, am I going anywhere, or am I just sort of like treading water? I just, I had we worked really hard all month. Oh, we have no more savings than we did last month. I mean, that's just a really, like, I can't tolerate that feeling anymore. Like, I think that's kind of how we operated for a long time. So the thing that's helped us is just saving first. Save first, like, get it out, like, out of your checking. It's gone. It's in
Absolutely.
savings.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. And I think that simple thing, I guess you just have to realize like a lot of people, I think, they go, well, I can't, that won't work because I won't be able to. But the thing is, you can make it work if you just get your savings out of there. Somehow you always figure out how to live on like what's left. And it might suck because you might have to, say no to some things, but there's kind of this, I think it's called, I don't remember the name of the theory right now, but there's a theory that basically says the amount of resources you have to do a thing, you tend to figure it out. Right. And so whether that's time, whether that's money, whatever that is, like, you tend to make it work. So we're, our, again, live on half your income is our main thing. And then also just like put that money away the way we do that is by getting our money just kind of out of our line of sight and into savings as quick as possible. And I also have this other fun kind of money saving game that I made up. It might be a thing, I don't know, that other people do, but so if I'm online shopping or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I want to buy this thing and it's $150. And before I hit checkout, I go, wait a minute, can I find this cheaper? Can I find it used? Can I find an alternative that doesn't cost as much, that accomplishes the same thing, or can I just not buy this at all? So if I do one of those things, so if I find a $75 version of whatever that is, or if I don't buy it at all, that what I didn't spend that I was about to spend, I just throw that in savings. So like if
Nice.
this is kind of a cool, it's like a game of fight. So like if I'm like, hey, I was about to buy this $150 freaking thing I don't really need, and then I decide, nah, then I throw $150 in savings.
That's
And it's kind of this
great. I
cool
love
little,
that.
it's this little game of, yeah, it's like really fun kind of thing that, and it like adds up. I remember the first couple of months I did it, I'm like, I just saved like $1,000, like that I
Jeez.
almost would have just spent. I mean, just on, stuff just kind of pops up, and like, so it's kind of cool. Like it's kind of a fun little thing that, that you just really get. It's like the emotional reward of saving starts to feel a lot better than whatever you're buying,
I could only imagine. I mean, I'm now that you say this, I'm almost thinking of doing that and make that the Christmas gift reserve fund.
There you go. Yeah, just like savings for Christmas. It's honestly
Yeah.
one of the best. Like, it's actually funny because I was thinking about that. I actually had the thought. I haven't done it, but I've actually had the thought, man, like just putting money, putting Christmas money in savings. Like that's a pretty good gift. I mean, like that is a no guilt gift.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Especially because we tend to kind of get to Thanksgiving area. We're like, oh shoot, now it's time for me to. So we have that spree of spending for a whole month, and then come
Yeah.
Christmas, and you look at your bank account and you're not so happy. So
Yeah, it can almost be like that post Christmas like drag
hangover,
of like,
almost like a
that
hangover.
hangover of like, I just spent so much money on gifts. Like, yeah, like that sucks.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, just honestly, like I said, there's not like any complex like rules we live by, other than some really simple heuristics that actually have like it's like that 80-20 rule. Like 20% of what you do is like 80% of kind of the results. So just us kind of doing a couple things like that has totally, for the first time, we're like, okay, the business is on solid financial ground. Our personal life is on solid financial ground. And so, but yeah, it's really just a trial and error process. And I think that, again, I think the linchpin for most people is just save money and figure out the rest. Like figure out how to live on less and save as much as you can. And I guess the other thing is, which is pretty, this is kind of common Instagram wisdom now, I don't know, but like, the idea that a lot of people don't understand what wealth is. And this is really funny because it's so obvious, but wealth is what you don't spend. Well, people literally think wealth is what you spend and then show off.
Right.
Like people think that's what wealth means. That's the exact opposite of what wealth is. Wealth is what nobody sees because it's in your savings account. And I think, so kind of that's a paradigm that I feel like our generation is kind of backwards on. A lot of people get it, but like a lot of people are still kind of stuck in, well, what's the point of wealth if I'm not flexing it everywhere?
Right.
And I think that
makes me cringe when I see that on Instagram.
Yeah, it's kind of like, and a lot of people, I think the conversation over the last couple of years has been like not to do that, but people still do it. And I think that, I think people still struggle with that one. And so that's one that I no longer struggle with. I really don't care what people think my financial situation is. I really care about how many digits are in my savings account. So I think, and you don't have, by the way, you don't save money to sit on it. That's the other thing. Oh, we always make sure that 6 months of living expenses is in the bank.
Yes. For
us personally. Ideally, and what we're working up to is like even like a year of operating expenses for the business in the bank. That's kind of the next stage that we're working on. And so that's a big 2020 goal for us, which is a big goal. Nobody like a lot of people don't operate that way, but if 2020's taught us anything, it's that like anything can happen. And,
seriously,
having a year, so having 6 months, and in 6 months could be more like 9 months, because this is 6 months of living expenses as we currently live. by the time we're actually living off of our savings, we're obviously going to throttle it back anyway. So 6 months actually kind of becomes like 9 months
You're right.
of effect to be like, we can hold our breath for 9 months and not worry. Like we have 9 months to find traction. That's enough time. Just doing that is so like, even if we're, so our next big purchase or whatever, like that 6 months of personal living expenses, that is not part of that. It doesn't exist. It's like break glass if needed. It's nowhere. It doesn't exist. So 6 months of living expenses is over here, and now we have zero, and now we're saving, right? So
Right.
I think that is a bit, just the fact that we've done that is like, you really feel, like anything else that happens financially, there's just so much less of that anxiety. So it's really worth it.
You were talking about wealth and how people don't really understand it. There's a funny story I want to share with you. I had a friend who knew this really rich, wealthy guy. He owned apartment buildings and t-shirt, jeans, regular shoes. And he eventually found out that that guy lives in the smallest apartment in the building. So he turned to him and said, "You're so wealthy. Why do you live in the smallest place? Why don't you live in the biggest one?" And he turned to him and said, "Well, how can I be rich if I'm not renting out the most expensive apartment?"
Ah, there you go. That's
And
really good.
It's such a mindset thing. So I think with social media, it's made it worse in the sense where we want to travel and show off our hotel. I don't understand that. People showing off their hotel rooms. I'm like, you're just showing us how much you just spent over the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, look, if you are actually renting we all need a vacation. If you're going
Absolutely.
and having a vacation and enjoying yourself and you want to share that with your followers, that's kind of what social media is for. If what you're doing is literally manufacturing situations to flex, look, I don't even I actually don't judge that either. I just don't do that. Like, I can't do that. I actually believe that, look, some people actually use that as part of their
reward
that's
system.
kind of part of the game. They're literally, they are being an influencer. They are creating content that is getting engaged with, and that content is very engaging. So I do think I don't want to judge that, because I think there's a time and place for it. I would say that with all of that though, if what you're doing is flexing what you're spending just for some sort of intrinsic, like if it's like an ego thing, like that's where it's really toxic. I actually respect people that are like putting that lifestyle together for the sake of building an influence on Instagram or wherever, to then flip, like that's the model. I actually respect that as a model. I don't respect it as an ego pumping thing, which I think it is probably for more people. It's an ego thing than it is an actual sound business model that they're executing on. So I think that's where I'm like, and I'm guilty of that. Like, I've definitely been, guilty of that in the past. Like, oh, this will be such a great Instagram moment.
We've all been there.
Yeah, and I think that's fun. And again, I don't judge it I judge myself if I do it. I'll put it that way. I don't judge someone else if they do it, because I don't know what their motivations are. But I judge myself when I do that now. And I think my biggest realization as an individual is the power of like low key success. The feeling of, I know that I'm achieving my goals, and that's enough. I don't need everyone else to also believe I'm achieving my goals. That doesn't matter to me, because that's essentially just vanity. If I know that I'm achieving my goals, if my wife is at home supporting my goals, and what I'm saying, that's enough. And I think that has been very freeing for me recently, and that helps you financially, because it puts less, it aligns your incentives in a way that's more conducive to like wealth building, because you're not worried about, what people think is going on. I think it's actually financially crippling to have this giant audience on social media to appease with your envious lifestyle, and constantly, like, it's for most people, that just cripples you financially. It doesn't do anything to really help you. Now, like I said, and some people are really good at creating a lifestyle that actually turns them into a legitimate influencer. They get marketing deals and they actually flip that. That's cool. That works. That is not what I was doing, so I stopped doing it.
I honestly did not think of that until you mentioned it right now. So thank you for pointing that out. Great perspective on that. Just didn't think about that at all.
It's a tricky one. It's I'm learning it right now. I'm sort of letting you into my current process. So
I guess I have two more questions for you. The first one would be, what is the thing that you learned from your parents when it comes to finances?
That's a really good question. So like my dad worked in like Yellow Pages growing up. My mom didn't work, at least since I was born. So my dad worked in Yellow Pages. He made really good. Yellow Pages was like working in, digital advertising now. Like it was kind of like I don't know what's the equivalent now, like influencer marketing or something. Like it was kind of like the big hot thing, in the 90s. So he made good money. He was like in the middle, like he was like the VP of sales at like at a phone book company, and then he became like middle management. So he made like a good salary. My dad was always a very humble guy in terms of my dad was also like, one of the good things I learned from him, or that I kind of picked up from him, is just like he had zero desire to impress anybody with his wealth. Like he never did. Even when he made a lot of, I think he probably made like 250 or something like that, during some years, during when we were growing up. But you wouldn't necessarily know that. Like he kind of he was really good at savings. But I think the biggest thing that he really downloaded to me was to be very, very afraid of credit cards. So like when I was growing up, I was like very averse to credit cards because he was never, he always said like, hey, credit is bad. Credit ruins you financially, blah, blah, blah. Now, obviously you kind of need credit, and credit is a very important tool, but he biased me early on to being very, very, very careful about credit. So I've never been in debt my whole life, on any level. I've always been net positive, like with my cash versus my credit. So I've never gone into the red. Now there might be good reasons to go into the red, I guess. I don't know. I don't want to. Like I always want to stay in the black the whole ride. I never want to, over leverage myself. So that's gone a long way because I've been very conservative with my credit, and so I've never, I know a lot of people have debt that's really, really burdensome to them, and I feel very lucky that I have never been in that situation. And I feel like that's because, and I had, people, when you're in college, everyone tries to, banks always try to get you on credit cards and stuff. Like, I was always like, I would just like run the other way. Like when they would like, reach out to me about that. And I think that I'm very lucky because I feel like that set me up. I also I went to like Cal Poly Pomona, paid cash for my college. So I never got any student loans either. So I just never did loans. I never did credit. I was kind of just snowballed, like, what can I do with my cash, which is a lot less than you can do with credit. And I think, so that's kind of the trade-off. Some people are really good at taking credit and flipping it and multiplying that. But I always kind of just snowballed with my cash. And I think that I'm just really thankful that my dad, gave me that perspective. So
that's huge. I mean, my dad told me to stay away from credit cards and I did not listen. So good job.
Yeah. Well, I was just maybe a little more, I respect that too. Again, like I think, I don't listen to everything my dad told me either. So, it's kind of it was all dumb luck on some level too, but.
The last thing I want to chat about is you mentioned you're launching something big in 2021. So I'd love you to kind of chat about that and see what's next for you.
Yeah. So like I said, my company does video production for businesses that need like high quality content on kind of an ongoing basis. So we don't really do, we don't do so much of kind of the one-off projects. We do more of kind of these long-term relationships. It's been kind of an experimental model. So my company right now, well, it's December right now. So by the time this comes out, we'll have rebranded. But my company's been called RWCP, which is not a great name to scale. We're changing the name to VideoFresh. And what VideoFresh is essentially a business model that is designed to scale premium video content. And we've developed a system to save clients an unbelievable amount of time, energy, and money when creating premium video content. There's a lot of waste that goes into creating premium video content. Through thousands of video projects, we've done trial and error on every way to do it. And we basically come up with a system where like if a brand is like, hey, we want this, if it's an e-commerce company, we want these product videos, or if it's like a nonprofit, we want to tell these stories. We've come up with these blueprints we have hundreds of blueprints. There's like every type of video you could ever make. And we know how to take any notion of a video that a brand might want to make. We know how to basically, with as few touch points as possible, get them from A to Z, and boom, here's the perfect video, and it meets all your marketing goals, and it's on brand, and it's emotionally compelling, and it's visually stunning. And it takes like, out the door, it takes like a little bit more than an hour of their time from end to end. Whereas usually it's like endless emails, endless phone calls, endless like sending scripts, getting notes on scripts. We've got it down so fast that I don't even know if our clients realize how fast it is compared to how it normally goes. But it's really cool because it allows us to do more content for them. So they get more content. It stretches their budget farther. It stretches their bandwidth of their time farther, which is a big variable that we know matters. Even if our client, I think a lot of clients, like I said, don't even understand how much time a video project can take. So they can't even if they have the budget, they don't have the bandwidth to actually give enough attention to the amount of content they need. So we free up that bandwidth for them. And so we have like an unbelievably high client retention. I mean, it's like 97% of clients we've ever worked with still work with us, usually like exclusively for video content over the last like 5 years. So it's like, we have a really high client retention. We've got a really cool system that works. So VideoFresh is like fine. So the RWCP has kind of been this beta of learning to then ultimately launch something to scale. And what we want to do is really scale this, my ultimate vision is to scale it into different cities, different states, kind of scale a model of like premium video. If you're a brand in this area, like this is a surefire way to get your premium video content. It's going to save you time. It's going to stretch your budget. And I think like you had mentioned early on in this conversation too, like customer service is the top value. So it's not just about creating the best content. We try to do that anyway, but it's really like the experience of the client. Like if we're working with a CMO or a marketing director, what is their experience and how smooth is their experience? Because on some level, they are the customer, like the person that we are in conversations with, and the person that we are dealing with directly at that brand. Their experience is really important, and it's one of the things we really care about is making sure that they're having a fulfilling experience, that they're having an easy, simple experience. There's no frustration. Change orders are quick. We read between the lines on what they're asking for. And so by the time this comes out, we should be launching, we should already have launched, sort of done a soft launch on this company, but we're excited for 2021 just to continue to learn and serve our clients as best we can. So
wonderful. Is there any place where someone can check out your work?
Yeah, they can go to videofresh.com, and we have some pages. We have like a sample page. You can see kind of a bunch of the videos that we've made for some of our clients on there. And by then we should also have, be on all the major social media platforms, and they can reach out to us there too. So
I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be awesome.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. So I like to end the segment with a fun, fast 5 questions where I ask you 5 questions and 30 seconds about to answer the question.
Cool.
My first one, Best $5 you spent in the past 12 months.
Man, probably I love these drinks that I'm drinking right now. It's called Highball. I love these things. They're so probably a can of this. It's like so it's just it's energy. It's like kind of if LaCroix and Red Bull had a baby. I don't know. It's really good.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've never seen it, so I might give it a shot.
I'm not affiliated with them. I just
Number 2.
You should try it.
Number 2, if money was not an issue, what is the one unnecessary thing you'd splurge your money on?
If money was not an issue, I've always wanted to have like a very large RV that's like I've always wanted to have mobile home situation and like go across the country with the family and stuff. So but money is an issue, so I don't know when that's going to happen, but something that it's a stretch goal. So
cool. Any specific spot you want to visit with the RV that you have in mind?
We definitely want to go to the Grand Canyon. That's my 2-year-old already knows about the Grand Canyon, and he knows we're going to take him there someday. We actually just went for the first time this year, and we want to take him back there. So
awesome. Number 3, best money mistake you've made.
When I had my first office, I ordered a custom like furniture for this office, right? And it was totally impulsive. Like I thought of it that day. I ended up spending $700 on essentially like a bench for my office. I don't know why. And so I think about that. That was like 10 years ago. This was like my very first office before my first company, right? It was just like my first office for me. And the reason that was a good mistake is because I think about that still. It reminds me to not purchase something the same day, like sleep on it. And so I don't make impulsive purchases anymore usually. So I'm usually I at least give it like one day, because half the time I'm like, why? I'm so glad I didn't move ahead with that purchase.
All right, and then the last one, best tip that you got. Well, best money tip you got when you were in your 20s.
Yeah, I'm sure it's one of the things I covered. I think saving living on half your income, you can actually do it no matter where you are. And I think this is where people get tripped up. But I think that like, if you make $40,000 a year, you're like, well, I can't possibly live on 20. It's like, but people do live on 20. Like a lot of people live on 20. Yeah. And if you can have the nerve to live on 20, making 40, that decision will become the way out for the rest of your life. So that's kind of the trick. So it's like, don't wait to live on half until you think you can live on half now, because you're just going to figure it out. And even if you have to, roommates or move in with your parents or whatever, if you can actually pull that off, you can basically be financially free forever. So that big realization has been one of the single best pieces of money advice I've heard, especially once you kind of take that leap and realize that it can actually work. So yeah, have to be that one.
Wonderful. Well, Rob, thank you so much for coming on. You shared a lot of good nuggets. I can't wait to have people watch this.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again for having me on, and yeah, good luck with everything on your end coming into the new year too. So
thank you, and I look forward to VideoFresh.
Yeah, I'll send you a link when that's up and running. So
great, awesome. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks. You too. Okay.